Garland, and I want to welcome you to the Power of Hope devotional. Listen, I'm telling you something. Please don't swipe me, because I will talk to you very, very important about something that's happening right before our eyes. You know, one of the things I spoke about in one of the other commentaries is that we really are lacking leadership in the general population. But one thing that has happened that is a positive, it is begin to start making other organizations begin to reflect on themselves to see if they have racist background. And I don't know if you heard one of my devotions I did a couple weeks ago. I talked about how that the Planned Parenthood, the whole background of Planned Parenthood, with the beginning and founder with Margaret Sanger, really advocated for the genocide of Black America. The genocide of Black America. So, because she believed in what was called eugenics. And eugenics, so you know, it goes all the way back actually to Thomas Malthus, who was one of them, and Francis Galton. And these guys all came up with certain points in their books that related to this. As a matter of fact, Malthus was created over the pseudoscience called eugenics, and he talks about things that are well-born, are noble in heredity. And the eugenics was assumed that there's a noble race or ignoble race. And so it determined what the worth of a human being. So eugenics actually, again, so you hear it again, it's based upon that which is born. You're born with a certain desire, a desired race. You're dysgenic stock, or you are preferred stock. So this is actually, when you go all the way back to this already goes back all the way back to Darwin. That's right, Charles. I remember evolution. Well, the guy I mentioned to you, Francis Galton, actually was the cousin of Charles Darwin that came up with the whole evolution. In other words, if God didn't create us, then we evolved. If we evolved, then therefore some of us evolved better than others. So one of the problems with evolution is that it allows us to have maybe competition of human beings in terms of who's better, who's not, who's a better stock that's not, who has better genes and doesn't. And so in this regard, the cousin of Charles Darwin, who's Francis Galton, was one of the ones that first came up with the whole idea of eugenics in general. Thomas Malthus took it there. And then, of course, Margaret Sanger was a great proponent of it. Do you recognize this? Now, this is going to really shock you. Do you know that Hitler also drew his Nazism from the theory of eugenics? So he took it on in Germany, literally patterned it after America, but he learned it and he took it to another level. And that's how he started concentration camps. And then he started a genocide of the Jews. So what you're dealing with here is that progressively, for those that want to promote their own race or promote their own culture, they've used theories of worldview to try to dysgenic other people and say they're less than others and say they're a strain on society. So now this is what happened this week, which is really profound, is that the New York Planned Parenthood decided to disassociate itself from their founder, Margaret Sanger. Well, why did they do it? Because Margaret Sanger actually attacked the Black community. Now, when I talked about the genocide of Black community, I didn't even go into this detail, but do you know that Margaret Sanger had what was called a Negro Project? A Negro Project, that's right, you heard it right. And so what her idea was that she was going to, listen, the purpose was to promote contraception use among the Black population of the South using Black ministers. That's right. The Negro Project, in other words, if contraception was accepted, this was another way to slow down the birth of the Black community. So then we can read another part. So he said she wrote this to Clarence Gamble. You heard of Gamble? Procter and Gamble? Yes, same person, Clarence Gamble, back in 1939. Clarence Gamble, back in 1939, she wrote this statement. She says, "We do not want word to get out that we want to exterminate the Negro population." You heard me right. that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of their more rebellious members. Her focus, Margaret Sanger's focus, was to exterminate the black community. So therefore, the connection of it, and she was the founder of Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood, is, as I said before, has been very particularly and strategically put in the inner cities, the black community, and even the Hispanic community also, so that it would allow for abortions to be even more so available, the access to abortion. And so no matter what Planned Parenthood says now, and even what they tried to do, which I commend them for disassociating themselves, they're literally about, 50 or 60 years behind. But whatever the case is, what has happened is it is calls for women, that black women, to represent 40% of the abortions that have taken place, although the percentage of the black population is only 13%. So what I'm saying to you is that it has been successful. The babies in the womb have become a target for this whole idea of eugenics. Of course, they don't call it that now. Of course, they tell you we just want to give women the access to have control of their body. They should be able to make a decision of their own body. But do you know that God himself ordained every child in the womb? He did. You want the scripture? The scripture is very clear. You know, Paul, who was profound, he wrote the most of the New Testament, particularly the letters that related to the church. And it's Galatians chapter 1, 15 and 16. And this is him talking about himself. He says, "But it pleased God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me by his grace to reveal his son in me, that I might preach to him among the heathen. Immediately I conferred not with flesh and blood." In other words, before Paul was born, even though Paul brought havoc to the church, even though Paul came after people like Stephen, came after Christians, and literally got permission to bring persecution and death to the church. He would go grab them out of homes. But ultimately, God ordained him and separated him from his mother's womb and called him by his grace to reveal the Son of Jesus Christ inside of Paul. So even though you may have a wayward way, you may have not gotten on course initially, God's hand is on your life from the womb. And then Jeremiah says something very similar. It says here, "Then the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee." Before I formed thee in the belly, before you were even conceived, I knew you. "And before thou comest out of the womb, I sanctified thee and ordained thee a prophet unto the nations." So ordination, sanctification, all these things came out of what? God's ordination, God's call for Paul, for Jeremiah. The same kind of thing is also, I want to say, for you. God ordained you from your mother's womb. You were not a mistake. You were not a mistake. This conception was not a mistake. So the reality of it is you cannot allow for yourself to ever feel that somehow you're just a social security number. God has ordained you. God has put his hand upon you literally from his womb. And we will not give in to genocide. We will not give in to Planned Parenthood, because babies are babies in the womb at conception. Let me just say this. You have been ordained of God. And I want to close this up by saying that God has ordained you for this hour because he conceived you in life and ordination. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in our next devotional.